If you're a senior man watching this, pay close attention, because the mistake that destroys more relationships after 60 than almost anything else is not age, bad luck, or a lack of opportunities. It is something far more common. It is losing yourself in an attempt to keep someone else happy. Many older men spend decades building a life they can be proud of. They develop routines, friendships, interests, values, and habits that give them stability. They work hard, gain experience, and finally reach a stage where they know who they are. Then a new relationship begins, and slowly, without even noticing it, they start giving pieces of that identity away. They stop making time for the things they enjoy. They become less available to friends. Their hobbies disappear. Their schedule begins revolving around one person. Before long, their entire life is centered on keeping a woman satisfied. This is where the problem begins. A healthy relationship should add to your life, not replace it. Yet many senior men convince themselves that sacrifice is proof of love. The more they give up, the more committed they believe they are. Unfortunately, that is not how respect works. Women admire men who have a life of their own. They admire men with purpose, independence, and direction. When you abandon everything that made you interesting before the relationship, you remove the very qualities that attracted her in the first place. The goal is not to make a woman your entire world. The goal is to build a relationship where both people bring a full life into the partnership. After 60, your identity is one of your greatest assets. Protect it. Never trade your independence for approval, because the man who keeps his sense of self is almost always the man who earns the most respect. The second thing a senior man should never do for a woman is invest too much before she has earned a meaningful place in his life. This mistake is incredibly common because it often comes from good intentions. A man meets a woman he likes, enjoys her company, and immediately starts giving. He gives his time, his attention, his emotional support, and sometimes even his money. He assumes that if he proves how caring, generous, and dependable he is, she will naturally value him more. But relationships do not work that way. Many older men make the mistake of treating a woman like a long-term partner before she has demonstrated long-term character. They hand out trust before trust has been earned. They offer commitment before consistency has been shown. They invest heavily in someone they barely know. A smart man understands that attraction and evaluation should happen at the same time. When you meet someone new, your job is not to impress her. Your job is to learn who she really is. Does she respect your time? Does she keep her word? Does she communicate honestly? Does she contribute to the relationship? Or does she simply receive? These are the questions that matter. One of the biggest advantages of age is experience. By now, you should know that words are cheap. Anyone can seem wonderful during the first few weeks or months. Real character reveals itself over time. That is why emotional discipline is so important. Do not rush to give someone VIP access to your life simply because they showed interest. Let them earn it. A woman who genuinely values you will never be threatened by your patience. In fact, patience often increases respect. It shows that you are making decisions with wisdom rather than loneliness. After 60, your time, energy, and attention are valuable. Treat them that way. The men who thrive in relationships are not the men who give the fastest. They are the men who observe the longest and choose the wisest. The third thing a senior man should never do for a woman is tolerate disrespect, even when it appears small. Many older men convince themselves that staying quiet is the mature thing to do. They avoid confrontation because they want peace, not arguments. They tell themselves certain comments are not worth addressing. They overlook rude behavior, dismissive attitudes, and subtle forms of disrespect because they believe keeping the relationship smooth is more important than speaking up. But there is a difference between peace and surrender. Every relationship teaches people how they can treat you. If a woman interrupts you constantly, mocks your opinions, dismisses your concerns, or speaks to you without basic respect, and you say nothing, you are sending a message whether you realize it or not. You are telling her that this behavior is acceptable. Over time, what you tolerate tends to grow. This is why strong boundaries are so important after 60. At this stage of life, your emotional energy is far too valuable to waste on people who do not appreciate it. You have earned the right to expect respect, courtesy, and consideration from anyone who wants access to your life. That does not mean becoming argumentative or aggressive. In fact, the strongest men rarely raise their voices. They simply make their standards clear. They calmly communicate what they will and will not accept. And if the behavior continues, they create distance rather than drama. A woman who genuinely values you will not force you to fight for basic respect. She will understand its importance from the beginning. Remember this, relationships do not fail because of one major act of disrespect. More often, they deteriorate because small acts of disrespect are allowed to continue unchecked. The moment you start accepting behavior that violates your values, you begin giving away your self-respect one piece at a time. And once self-respect disappears, relationship respect usually follows it out the door. The fourth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is become her financial plan. This is one of the most expensive mistakes older men make, and it often starts so innocently that they do not recognize the danger until much later. A woman enters their life. She is pleasant, attentive, and appreciative. Then small requests begin appearing. Perhaps she needs help with a bill. Perhaps she is facing a temporary problem. Perhaps she simply needs a little support to get through a difficult situation. By itself, helping someone you care about is not the problem. The problem begins when financial support becomes the foundation of the relationship rather than a natural expression of it. Many senior men have spent decades building financial security. They worked hard, sacrificed, planned for retirement, and created stability for themselves. Yet some end up risking that security for women who contribute very little beyond affection and attention. Always remember this. Genuine affection and financial dependence are not the same thing. A woman who truly values you will appreciate your generosity, but she will not see you as a walking solution to every problem in her life. She will want a relationship, not a sponsorship. This is especially important for older men dating significantly younger women. Not every younger woman has bad intentions, but a wise man understands that attraction alone is not evidence of genuine commitment. Character matters, motives matter, consistency matters. One of the easiest ways to evaluate a relationship is to imagine what would happen if the money disappeared tomorrow. Would she still be there? Would her behavior remain the same? Would her interests survive the loss of financial benefits? Those questions reveal a great deal. After 60, your money is more than money. It represents freedom, security, independence, and peace of mind. Protecting it is not selfish, it is responsible. A relationship should improve your life, not quietly drain the resources you spent a lifetime building. The fifth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is apologize for having standards. One of the strangest things that happens to some men as they get older is that they begin acting as though they should feel grateful for any attention they receive. They look at an attractive woman, a younger woman, or even a woman who simply shows interest, and they immediately start lowering their expectations. They tolerate behavior they would have rejected years ago. They ignore red flags. They stay silent about things that bother them because they fear losing the opportunity altogether. This mindset creates problems from the very beginning. When a man starts negotiating against himself, he sends a message that his standards are optional. And once people believe your standards are optional, they stop taking them seriously. The reality is that standards become more important with age, not less. By now you know what creates a healthy relationship and what creates frustration. You know the value of honesty, loyalty, consistency, kindness, and emotional maturity. Why would you spend decades learning those lessons only to abandon them because you fear being alone? A woman may not agree with every standard you have, and that is perfectly fine. The goal is not to make everyone happy. The goal is to find someone whose values align with your own. If a woman becomes offended because you expect respect, honesty, effort, or accountability, then she is revealing valuable information about herself. Pay attention to it. If you're getting value from this discussion, take a moment to subscribe and stay connected, because the next lesson is one of the biggest reasons many senior men lose respect in relationships without even realizing it. Never apologize for knowing what you want. Standards are not a weakness. They are evidence that experience has taught you what truly matters. And after 60, wisdom should guide your relationships, not fear. The sixth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is chase her after she starts pulling away. This is where many older men make a costly mistake. The moment a woman becomes distant, their instincts tell them to do more. They call more often, they send longer messages, they offer more attention, more reassurance, and more effort. They believe that if they can just show enough interest, they can bring her back to the way she was before. Unfortunately, that approach rarely works. When someone creates distance, chasing usually magnifies the problem rather than solving it. The more one person pursues, the more the other person often pulls away. What started as a small gap quickly becomes a pattern where one person is constantly seeking connection while the other controls the relationship's direction. A senior man must understand something important. Attraction cannot be negotiated. Respect cannot be begged for. Interest cannot be forced. If a woman values you, she will make an effort to stay connected. If she genuinely wants you in her life, she will not require endless persuasion to remain there. This does not mean you should become cold, arrogant, or indifferent. It simply means you should have enough self-respect to recognize when someone is withdrawing and allow them the freedom to do so. One of the greatest advantages of age is perspective. By now, you should know that your value does not decrease simply because one person becomes distant. You have experience, emotional stability, wisdom, and life lessons that many younger men are still trying to develop. Never spend your later years chasing someone who is unsure about you. The right woman will appreciate your presence. The wrong woman will make you work endlessly for attention that should have been given freely. Learn the difference and you will save yourself years of frustration and disappointment. The seventh thing a senior man should never do for a woman is allow her to control his emotional state. Many men reach their later years believing they have mastered life, only to find themselves emotionally exhausted because they handed their peace to someone else. They allow a woman's moods to determine their mood. They allow her approval to determine their confidence. They allow her attention to determine their happiness. That is a dangerous way to live. Some women create emotional stability. Others create emotional chaos. The problem is that many men fail to recognize the difference until they are deeply invested. They become trapped in cycles of mixed signals, jealousy, emotional games, unpredictable behavior, and constant uncertainty. One day everything feels wonderful. The next day they are confused, anxious, and wondering what changed. This is not love. This is emotional dependency. A senior man should never give another person that much control over his inner world. At this stage of life, peace is one of your most valuable assets. You have spent decades learning lessons, overcoming challenges, and developing emotional resilience. Why would you hand that hard-earned stability to someone who creates confusion instead of clarity? Women respect men who remain calm under pressure. They respect men who do not overreact to every emotional fluctuation. They respect men who can think clearly when others become emotional. That does not mean suppressing your feelings. It means managing them wisely. If a woman constantly brings drama, conflict, and emotional turbulence into your life, pay attention. A healthy relationship should make your life more peaceful, not more stressful. After 60, your goal should not be to find excitement at any cost. Your goal should be to protect your peace. Because a woman who brings calm will improve your life, while a woman who brings chaos will slowly drain the energy you worked a lifetime to build. The eighth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is become responsible for fixing every problem in her life. Many older men fall into this trap because they have spent years solving problems. They have raised families, built careers, overcome setbacks, and learned how to navigate difficult situations. When they see someone struggling, their natural instinct is to step in and help. On the surface, that sounds admirable, But in relationships, there is an important difference between supporting someone and rescuing them. A healthy woman wants a partner. An unhealthy woman often wants a savior. The moment you start believing that her happiness, finances, emotional stability, or personal growth depend entirely on you, the relationship becomes unbalanced. Instead of walking beside her, you end up carrying her. And over time, carrying another adult's responsibilities becomes exhausting. Many senior men do not notice this happening until they feel completely drained. They spend their time solving her financial problems, managing her emotional crises, cleaning up her mistakes, and constantly stepping in whenever life becomes difficult. The relationship slowly transforms into a full-time responsibility rather than a source of companionship. Support is healthy, rescue is not. A strong relationship is built on two people taking responsibility for their own lives while helping each other when needed. It is not built on one person constantly saving the other from consequences. If a woman expects you to solve every problem she creates, she is not looking for an equal partner. She is looking for someone to carry burdens she should be handling herself. After 60, your energy becomes increasingly valuable. Use it wisely, help when appropriate, be supportive when necessary, but never sacrifice your own well-being trying to fix a life that someone else refuses to take responsibility for. The ninth thing a senior man should never do for a woman is allow himself to become isolated from the people and activities that keep him grounded. This often happens so gradually that a man barely notices it. At first, he spends a little more time with her and a little less time with friends. Then family gatherings become less frequent. Hobbies start disappearing. Weekly routines get pushed aside. Before long, the relationship becomes the center of his entire social world. That is where the danger begins. The strongest and happiest senior men are rarely the ones who make a woman their entire life. They are the ones who maintain balance. They have friendships, interests, routines, and meaningful connections outside of the relationship. These things do more than keep a man busy. They protect his independence and strengthen his sense of identity. When a relationship becomes your only source of companionship, perspective starts disappearing. Your emotional well-being becomes tied to one person. If the relationship becomes unstable, your entire world feels unstable. Some women encourage independence because they understand its value. They want a partner with a full life, not someone who depends entirely on them for happiness. Other women may consciously or unconsciously encourage isolation because it gives them more influence and control. A wise senior man recognizes the difference. Never abandon your friendships because of a relationship. Never stop seeing family because someone makes it inconvenient. Never give up the hobbies and routines that have brought meaning to your life for years. Healthy relationships expand your life. Unhealthy relationships shrink it. After 60, staying socially connected is not just good for your happiness. It is good for your emotional health, your confidence, and your ability to make wise decisions. Protect your independence because the man who remains connected to the world is far less likely to lose himself in a relationship. The 10th thing a senior man should never do for a woman is give love before he receives respect. This may be the most important lesson of all, because every mistake we have discussed ultimately leads back to this one principle. Many older men enter relationships leading with love, generosity, patience, attention, and affection. They believe that if they give enough, a woman will eventually appreciate them, respect them, and value what they bring to the relationship. But respect does not grow from overgiving. Respect comes from how a man carries himself. It comes from his standards, his boundaries, his confidence, and his willingness to walk away from situations that do not serve him. A woman may enjoy your company. She may appreciate your kindness. She may accept your gifts and attention. But if she does not respect you, the relationship will always feel unstable. You will constantly find yourself working harder, giving more, and wondering why your efforts are not producing the connection you hoped for. Respect changes everything. When a woman respects a man, she values his time, she values his opinions, she values his presence. She thinks carefully before crossing his boundaries because she understands his worth. This is why respect must come before deep emotional investment. Love without respect often creates frustration. Respect without love can grow into something meaningful. But love without respect almost always leads to disappointment. As you move through this stage of life, remember that your peace is priceless. Your time is limited. Your energy matters. Protect all three. The happiest senior men are not the men who give the most. They are the men who know their value, maintain their standards, and refuse to abandon themselves for anyone. Once you understand that, relationships become simpler. You stop chasing approval. You stop accepting poor treatment, and you start attracting people who appreciate the man you already are. Because after 60, the goal is not to find someone to complete your life. The goal is to find someone who respects the life you have already built.